Hello, welcome to Philosophy Roulette 127, where we get philosophy off the internet and read it live in review for your viewing pleasure and perhaps edification. So let's see, what were we doing? Let's take a look at what's new. We're doing, I did an article from European Journal of Philosophy, but those were long. If I have to read for over an hour, I get tired. No, I'm not doing agriculture and human values. You publish so much, but I just don't, yeah, okay, so these are all the usual suspects. Alright, so biosemiotics. Unfortunately, this is probably too technical to read out loud. We looked at axiomathes recently. More medical ethics. Centaurus. This was. Yeah, I've looked at all these journals. Alright, so let's go to the journal list and see if I can get a little lucky with like sometimes I just want to go to analysis and see if there's something short that I haven't seen yet. Let's see. Let's go down to the bottom of the page. I think I've read all of this stuff. Oh boy. Shucks. Or I've read most of this stuff. Let's see if there's something new. Utility cascades. I don't know what that is. A utilitarian paper. I haven't done enough utilitarianism. This is a review. These are all reviews. Let's see. Anything? No, I don't know. I think this is all the same stuff. Alright, so you know what? Let's go back a page and maybe I'll get lucky. Some of these older ones may be up. Nope, I read all these. I don't know if I got to time biases. Let's just double check. Nope. Oh, that's right. I looked at this, but you can't find it because the name is too common in some sense. Robert's pick. Actual. Did I read this? I probably did, or tried to at least. This was a fun paper. This rescue and personal involvement. Plenty of room. This was good. They're all good papers, really. Sure. Okay. So much for that. Yeah. Someone asked me, was like, why don't you read a paper from philosophy? Those are short. I mean, analysis. Those are short. I'm like, my friend. Let me tell you about analysis. What's this? Where's thought? Is it not in the most popular list? It might not be. So it would be like right here next to the monist. Oh, I have not looked at the monist. That is a good idea. I don't know how long my papers are, but we will find out. Alright, look at that. Is there anything forthcoming? Because, no, I mean, the monist does themed issues. So, we'll see what we got. Neglected emotions. Is this, I thought this might be the editorial. Because I think this was the name of the, let's take a look. Aesthetic emotions reconsidered. Let's get the highlighting to help out. Oopsie. On the good that moves us. The many flavors of regret. Because regret is very tasty. Anticipatory vicarious grief. I'll show you. Or is it I'll show you? Spite as a reactive attitude. I don't know how else what spite would be. What else would you be spiteful about? You have to be spiteful about something. Alright, let's see if there's anything else. To trust a liar. Alright, so let's just see what we got. Okay, so this is available. Let's see. I suspect this is the all contributions to this issue. Yeah, this was the title of it. I looked at that before. This is 14 pages. Let's see how we're doing here. Nope. Many flavors or of tasty regret. Nope. Let's just see if it happens to load up. They usually don't. Negative on that one. Negative on this one. This looks like Swedish or something. Well, I tried. Sorry, monist. We'll have to leave you be for now. Yeah, let's try. I did some Southern Journal of Philosophy. Did I? Could always look at it. Ratio. Oh, this ain't bad. 9 pages. Reasons in relation to bodily action. Did I read this? I don't even know. It's terrible. See the question marks there? That even means it's even shorter. Alright, so. Love, reason, and morality. Maybe there's a bunch of very small text on these too. Alright, let's take a look. Ten pages of reasonably small font, but that's okay. I can do 10 pages. Problem with Descriptive Correctness by Jeffrey Kaplan, University of North Carolina. I'm going to read your paper. If you join me live, and I mean I do get viewers, they're not here yet, hopefully they will be. You can grab the paper by typing !paper in the chat box, or the link will be in the show notes below the video if you are watching this later. So. Greensboro, North Carolina. Nice place, I've been there. They've got one of the best beer selections of beer in their supermarkets there. I swear to you. They do their beer really well down in Greensboro. So. Yeah, Department from the University of North Carolina, Curry, Greensboro, yeah. Okay, that's it. Problem with descriptive correctness. Here we go. The origin and importance of the normative meaning of the normative meaning. Okay. In the second half of the 20th century, naturalistic theories of meaning proliferated. But in 82, Kripke claimed that there is a certain feature of meaning that cannot be explained by dispositional theories, and indeed by naturalistic theories more generally. That feature is normativity. So Kripke's sister died of COVID-19. It was in the Times just not that long ago, so that's annoying. She apparently was a expert in like dictionaries, in the history and all sorts of dictionaries and all sorts of attempts to define definition and whatnot. But she just died, and her like apartment was like filled to the brim with like rare dictionaries. But I mean, someone asked me if not that I know Salt, but like they asked me if I knew he was okay. Yeah, I mean, at least we know that if he's arranging for his sister's funeral, that he's alive, but still, it's very sad. Anyway, so Saul's around, still. Kripke did not so much argue that meaning is normative as he did assert it. The point is not that if I mean addition by plus, I will answer 125, but that if I intend to accord with my meaning of plus, I should answer 125. Not quas, it's plus. Though Kripke says little more than this, the idea is simple and prima facie compelling. The fact that one means addition by plus does not have a descriptive relation to one's use of plus. It does not entail that one does use plus a certain way. but rather that one ought to use plus a certain way, or at minimum that using plus a certain way is correct. To say that meaning is normative is not the uncontroversial claim that language use is governed by norms. Virtually all human activity is governed by norms. Rather, the claim is that, in some sense to be more precisely specified, normativity is intrinsic or essential to meaning. Excuse me. Normative facts of some kind follow directly without any further substantive premise from meaning facts. Okay. Why does the normativity of meaning matter? It matters because it is thought that if meaning is normative, then certain naturalistic theories of meaning are doomed. Kripke originally introduced the normativity meaning as one of several attacks on dispositional theories of meaning, which hold that the meaning use of linguistic expression can be explained in terms of certain facts about how the speaker is disposed to use that expression. But it has seemed to many that if normativity is a problem for dispositionalism, then it also constitutes a general a priori argument against naturalistic theories of meaning. As a starting point, I will focus on the normativity of meaning specifically as it applies to dispositionalism. 2. Sophisticated antinormativism. Normativism. Okay. The normativity of meaning seemed beyond dispute, at least for a time. Akil Bigrami was among the first to challenge it, which she did by simply denying that there is any sense inherent to meaning that the use of linguistic expressions is ever correct or incorrect. Bigrami grants, of course, that many uses of expressions are morally or prudentially permissible or impermissible, but he denies any such status that follows from the meaning of an expression alone. This version of antinormativism rejects the reality of semantic correctness facts, which seem to many to be obviously real. If a speaker uses green to mean green, green in quote, to mean green in italicized, not actually quoted, and she uses that word to describe the color of a bright red tomato, then she has done something that is, in some sense at least, incorrect. But this early version of antinormativism was followed by a more sophisticated version that has become much more popular. This more sophisticated antinormativism is found on the following insight. It is possible to grant that calling a non-green thing green is semantically incorrect when denying that one semantically ought not to do it. One can allow for what seems right about Kripke's claim while denying that this amounts to the kind of full-blown normativity that rules out dispositionalist theories of meaning. So you can still do it without ruling out dispositionalism. This dialectical move broke the debate about normativity of meaning wide open and made it considerably more interesting. Fundamentally, it is a way of distinguishing two different senses in which we might think that a meaning is normative. A full-blown sense consisting of facts about how agents ought to behave or what reasons they have, and a lesser sense of that it is a less burdensome explanandum because it consists merely of facts about which uses of expressions are correct. Which, with a distinction like this, and only with a distinction like this, it is possible to deny that meaning is normative in a sense damaging to dispositionalism, while accepting that calling a red tomato green while using the word to mean green is thereby incorrect. Less burdensome. Okay. It is not surprising that this commonality among anti-normativist arguments has gone unnoticed because, with the exception of Hatiangadi, it is not typically made explicit. But what I wish to emphasize is that all anti-normativists who wish to grant the reality of semantic standards of correctness must rely on a distinction of this sort. There is no way to acknowledge such standards of correctness and to deny that meaning is normative other than by distinguishing such standards of correctness from the normativity of meaning. So, for example, while Papineau, and I always assume this is David Papineau because I don't know if there's another Papineau, focuses his anti-normativist argument almost entirely on the claim that meaning or content does not have moral or prudential normative weight, he implicitly relies on the distinction between varieties of normativity when he allows for semantic correctness. So distinction between varieties of normativity. So here's where we're going to go, I guess. Facts of semantic correctness, he claims, are merely shorthand for claims about truth. So the fact that answering 125 is semantically correct is nothing more than the fact that 68 plus 57 equals 125 is true. And truth is a descriptive property like car speed or celibacy. Papineau grants the reality of semantic correctness while denying the reality of full-blown semantic normativity. Okay, so there's a fact in the world about stuff, not a normative fact about way things should be. If the sophisticated antinormativist is going to maintain that meaning's normativity is not a constraint on our theories of meaning, that even dispositionalism can, in principle, explain the sense in which meaning is normative, then meaning must exhibit only the lesser variety of normativity, and this variety of normativity must have the following two characteristics. A, it can be fully accounted for in terms of how people behave and are disposed to behave, that is, those explanatory resources available to dispositionalists. And B, it does justice to the intuition that the meaning of an expression entails facts about which use of that expression are correct or incorrect. So yeah, this is the factive stuff calling. We call this a lesser variety of normativity descriptive correctness. It does not matter for our purposes whether descriptive correctness counts as real normativity, whatever that might mean. What matters is only that there is a single feature of meaning with these two characteristics. It must have both in order to play the role that this particular antinormativist needs to play. If descriptive correctness were not descriptive, that is, if it were out of the explanatory reach of dispositionalism, then acknowledging its reality would be to accept at least some kind of normativity about meaning. Alternatively, if descriptive correctness were not a form of correctness, that is, if it could not explain how expression having a meaning entails that some use of it are correct or incorrect, then sophisticated antinormativism collapses into unsophisticated antinormativism. Yeah, so you need some way to match up the world if there's a fact about the matter. And if not, then you're just sort of unsophisticated. This just is some way. Okay. The problem with descriptive correctness. The sophisticated antinormativist needs meaning to exhibit descriptive correctness. But is descriptive correctness even coherent? The two characteristics that make up descriptive correctness appear to be in tension. This seems, at least prima facie, that correctness cannot be explained in behavioristic and dispositional terms. To see why this is so, consider the following example. Walking on the surface of the earth is common. Walking on the surface of the moon is uncommon. But walking on the surface of the earth is not therefore correct, and walking on the moon not incorrect. Not incorrect. When Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin walked on the moon on July 21st, 1969, they did something uncommon, but in no sense incorrect. Well, they did something incorrect if you're saying they walked on Earth, because they definitely did not walk on Earth. They walked on the moon. But in terms of just walking, then yeah. Patterns or regularities of behavior are unable to explain standards of correctness. Prior to 1969, not a single human had ever walked on the moon. But even a regularity of behavior as robust as this does not generate a standard of correctness, and adding dispositions to behave in certain ways appears to get us no closer to correctness. Say that everyone, including Armstrong and Aldrin, was disposed not to walk on the moon, were they to land there. So they just land, but they don't walk around. Perhaps they mistakenly think that walking there would be to their detriment, or perhaps it is just a brute fact that it never occurs to them to walk on the moon, even if they found themselves sitting in a lunar lander. Well, I mean, just imagine the spacesuits didn't work very well. Such dispositions would make walking on the moon unlikely, but not incorrect. The fact that phying is uncommon, even in combination with the fact that everyone is disposed not to phy, does not make phying incorrect. And the fact that phying is common, even in combination with the fact that everyone is disposed to phy, does not make phying correct. There was a recent movie called First Man about this. I had no idea how dour Armstrong was. I mean, very, very, very brave, but dour. Which is cool, too. I mean, not enough dour people around. I think we'll be dour for a few days and see how it works. I don't know. What this shows is that simple first-order regularities and dispositions are insufficient for standards of correctness. First order? I mean, it's like, so we're talking about like object or property level? Okay, but what if we make use of a more complex arrangement of the same explanatory results available to the dispositionalist? Can semantic correctness facts be explained by appeal to regularities of higher order behavior or dispositions? So the answer is maybe. I have no general argument against the possibility of such an explanation, so proposals would have to be considered on a case-by-case basis. The anti-normativist would need to offer up some specific complex arrangement of behavioral and dispositional facts and claim that they constitute or are sufficient for the existence of correctness facts. Normativists might then argue that the relevant behavioral and dispositional facts are not up to the task. But historically, this is not how the debate about normativity of meaning has gone. And this points to the original contribution that the present paper attempts to make, as being generally assumed that if the normativity of meaning is a problem for any descriptive theory of meaning, then it is a problem for all of them. But once we see that the appeal to descriptive correctness is shared by all sophisticated anti-normativist arguments, and once we see that descriptive correctness is in trouble, then it becomes apparent that the anti-normativist needs to provide an argument that are so far missing from the debate about the normativity of meaning. So I guess you could, the way you combine different things that people do or don't do could matter. So then you'd have sort of groups of you'd be ranging over types of properties and things that people do, and then you could have is that normative? And maybe, I guess, and the answer here is maybe, that there is something normative or not that makes a difference here. Okay. Normativists have previously insisted that descriptive accounts are unable to explain semantic correctness facts. Anti-normativists have previously responded that semantic correctness only seems like a troublesome explanandum because it has been confused with full-blown normativity. But if descriptive correctness is troubled in the way that I have suggested in this section, then sophisticated anti-normativists will have to admit that the reality of semantic correctness rules out simple dispositionalism, and they will need to offer up some version of complex dispositionalism or some other descriptive account of meaning, and argue that such an account can explain the reality of semantic correctness facts. Alright, so I guess the argument here is that basically saying that what's making a fact correct or not is sort of ad hoc because we just don't have just a plain history. The correlation doesn't imply causation, sort of thing, just because they're correlated, and no one has ever done something like you. Just because defying is common, just because something else is uncommon, doesn't make one right or wrong. So there is no fact of the matter about the meaning here. So because there's no fact about, just because we all keep referring to certain things in one way doesn't make it a fact. Okay, so you can't there's no induction here, I guess, you can do on the meaning of words. This new burden on the anti-normativist arises because the attention in descriptive correctness, the simplest way of making out descriptive conditions of language, is insufficient for the explaining the reality of standards of correctness. The walking on the moon example is meant to demonstrate precisely this. The sophisticated anti-normativist will need to make use of some richer set of explanatory resources. Okay. Yeah, so this is sort of like an inductive argument over the history of word meaning. So if there's not a norm that is forcing you to get the meaning right, just appealing to some historical thing doesn't make it correct or make it a fact or make it right or wrong, because the history just could be contingent about how things have been. Just like people walking on the moon and people walking on Earth, it's contingent that no one walked on the moon before Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin. Yeah, and go watch that movie, it was fun. A non-descriptive correctness. What if the sophisticated anti-normativist is not up to the task? What if even second-order behavioral dispositions are inadequate for explaining correctness facts? The sophisticated anti-normativist attempted to introduce a middle road between A, accepting that meaning is normative in the full-blown sense, and B, denying that there are semantic correctness facts. If descriptive correctness cannot be made to work, then it might seem like we are left only with these two original options. But this, I think, is a mistake. The sophisticated anti-normativist argument takes the following form. Meaning either essentially exhibits a full-blown normativity or mere descriptive correctness. Alright, so you got one or the other. If it exhibits mere descriptive correctness, then anti-normativism is true. Meaning does not exhibit full-blown normativity. Therefore, antinormativism is true. The greater part of the argumentative energy tends to be put towards motivating some version of premise 3, that's meaning does not exhibit full-blown normativity, typically by considering several ways that meaning might exhibit full-blown normativity and rejecting each of them in turn. This is the strategy of Papineau and Wilberforce, for instance. But what about premise 1? It presents what seems to be, to me, a false dichotomy. Alright, because full-blown or descriptive correctness. You got something else in between, maybe? To see that this is so, recall the problem with descriptive correctness from the previous section. If meaning exhibits descriptive correctness, then it has two characteristics. It yields facts of semantic correctness, and it can be explained dispositionally. But whether or not it can have these two characteristics simultaneously, it might very well have either of them individually. So when we lay out these two characteristics, we see that there are actually four potential answers to the question whether and in what way meaning is normative. A. Meaning exhibits full-blown normativity. I've been purposefully vague about what full-blown normativity is. Yeah, I was kind of wondering what exactly that amounted to. Others have attempted to offer fuller and more satisfying characterizations, which I will not repeat because, for our purposes here, much less is needed. So 25, we got this nice list. Oh, look at this list down here in 25. There's all the people who do this. Alright, very roughly, we might say that any phenomenon that by itself generates reasons for actions is normative in the sense that rules out dispositionalism and plausibly other naturalistic theories as well. Alright, so itself generates that any phenomenon that itself generates action is normative. So, because it's not the phenomenon itself is what's doing it. Okay. B. Meaning is not normative in any sense. This is unsophisticated antinormativism. On this view, meaning is not normative and there are no semantic standards of correctness. There is no such thing as using an expression correctly given its meaning, and there is no obstacle to dispositional explanations of meaning. Okay. C. Meaning entails standards of correctness explainable with complex dispositions. This is the route that remains available to the sophisticated antinormativist. I have suggested that it requires more work than has been appreciated, namely some set of complex second-order dispositions that can explain standards of correctness needs to be suggested. I will admit that I am skeptical that such a suggestion can be made to work, but I am not in possession of a general argument showing that no such view is workable. D. Meaning entails standards of correctness explainable only with non-dispositional but still broadly naturalistic resources. This is a middle road that will not fully satisfy traditional normativists or antinormativists, either sophisticated or unsophisticated. According to this route, the sophisticated antinormativist is right in thinking that standards of correctness and full-blown normativity can be distinguished. It is one thing to say that 125 is the correct answer, and that this correctness is something that a theory of meaning must explain, and it is another thing to say that one ought to answer 125, and that this altogether rules out naturalistic theories of meaning. It might be the case that meaning facts entails facts about which uses of linguistic expressions are correct and incorrect, but those facts need not be susceptible to explanation fully in terms of behavior and dispositions to behave. This is a kind of normativity that one has of the characteristics of descriptive correctness, but not the other. The idea behind this final route is that standards of correctness can be explained in terms of psychological states. Alright, well, let's just see if I'm missing anything here. Because we've got this sort of complex sort of thing going on here where we've got different sort of dispositions working together to get a certain outcome about why something is the correct answer. Okay. And then the idea behind the final route let's keep going. The idea behind this final route is that standards of correctness can be explained in terms of psychological states. Take, for example, the well-known Lewisian view of convention. Lewis's view is fundamentally Humean. It explains certain phenomena by appeal to the resources of Humean belief desire psychology. Beliefs in the form of expectations about the future behavior of others, and desires in the form of preferences concerning that future behavior. Of course, Lewis's view has been criticized for precisely for its inability to explain normativity. So perhaps it cannot explain semantic correctness. But regardless, it is an example of a view that makes use of more than dispositional resources, and therefore may be better equipped to explain the kind of normativity we are after. A more contemporary example is the Hart-inspired view of Brennan et al. On this view, the existence of norms or standards of correctness is explained in terms of normative attitudes taken by individuals. For our purposes here, it does not matter what precisely these attitudes are. They remain irreducibly normative, but crucially, the fact that people take such attitudes is a descriptive fact. So even though a theory of this kind makes use of more than mere patterns of behavior or dispositions, it is still broadly naturalistic explanation of correctness of facts. Alright, so basically, if you can find something in the human that, not human, the person themselves, basically their psychology and maybe some complex interaction within them, then you can say, well, that disposition is what is describing what's going on, and it can be either true or false in the world because it's you're describing what they're up to. Okay. I am not here arguing that meaning is normative in this sense, or that suitable theories of meaning can be developed along the lines of these attitude-based accounts. Rather, I am pointing out that even if sophisticated anti-normativism cannot be made to work, even if semantic correctness cannot be explained in either simple or complex dispositional terms, then we can still harness a central insight from sophisticated anti-normativism. So it could be wrong, but for the right reasons, I guess. We need not abandon all distinctions between full-blown normativity and some kind of standards of correctness generating normativity. What makes this alternative different from that of sophisticated antinormativism is that it drops the descriptive component of descriptive correctness. Semantic correctness is real, but it might not be explainable with purely behavioristic and dispositional resources. If meaning is normative in the sense that it necessarily entails standards of correctness, and if behavioral regularities and dispositions are insufficient for standards of correctness, then dispositional theories of meaning are in trouble. But other theories of meaning, even thoroughly reductive ones, may hold more promise. Alright, so there's still, the author still thinks they're, even though there's problems here, that they're still good. Oh, that's it. Alrighty. Okie dokie, I see. Okay, so that was it. Not that long. Well, it was still not the super short, but it just compared to the ones this morning, it was a little bit shorter. The end took me by surprise. Okay, so I guess what the author is trying to say here is that because you can't, you can basically mount a Humean correlation doesn't imply causation, or it doesn't imply descriptive correctness here, even though we've been assigning words certain meanings in the past, that doesn't make it descriptively correct to do so, then you can't do that. So they say you need a norm to continue to do that. And if you don't want to do that, you have to get some sort of more sophisticated picture to maybe get that more reasons built in. And even if you can't do that, they still think that's a good idea for the reasons I just said, because you need to, how to have a normative picture at all, it still provides an interesting way to have a normative picture. Alright, so the question is, what do we think about the difference? Well, the argumentation here is fine. I would have liked a little bit more on the this problem with descriptive correctness. It was a fine argument, really. I mean, personally, I would have just liked a, like I was trying to make it clearer to myself, and this is a short enough paper. They could have thrown in a paragraph just to like smooth out better summary of what was going on. But I mean, that's just sort of what I was thinking. It's not a big deal at all. Other than that, no. Other than that, it's fine. Anybody in the audience have any questions here? I don't know. Yeah. How do you? So, I guess the question is, how do you know when what you're saying is what you're saying is what you mean? It's either are you is there a norm that you are abiding by, that you actually get the meaning right because you're abiding by the norm, or is it correct because there is some fact that is correlated out in the world? And so, I don't know, have I considered do I not have any opinion on the matter? I don't think I have any opinion on the matter at the moment. I should try to think about what I actually think meaning amounts to. I usually neither like normativity or just these like full-blown fact accounts either, so I'd have to find one of these just like something sophisticated like the author wants. But I have nothing else to say right now about this. This is a nice paper if you are interested in such things and trying to understand with how to fix the meaning of words. You get the semantics here, and the fact that you can't appeal to history, or that just because everything has been referenced one way doesn't mean that it should be done that way. So you can appeal to a norm, but is that ad hoc just by saying, well, that's a norm that we do so, and maybe you don't like that because it's just a little too easy? Or do you think that if you don't do that, then there's some fact, but then how do you line up the fact and with what you're saying? Because if you don't appeal to a norm, what are you appealing to? And you have nothing in history to say that you are getting it correct. And then what the author did was they pushed it into psychology. Then you're getting the psychology correct, but does that actually work? And I think they didn't think it did, but they still thought it was of value. Okay, so that was my summary. I didn't have a whole lot to argue with here, but that's fine. I hope everyone stays safe and has a good night, and I will be back in the morning, I think. And yeah, I hope, yeah, that's all. North Carolina Philosophical Association. All right. Thank you, North Carolina Philosophical Association. Have a good day. Goodbye. Stay safe.